All right, let's talk some football. Daniel Harris is with us this morning. Before we get to all the stuff that we actually phoned you up to talk about, in the meantime, Wayne Rooney has stuck one in from a free kick from DC United from basically the halfway line. This is the type of stuff that Man United could still have if only they hadn't got rid of him 3 seasons ago when he was way past his best.
Yes, I mean, I looked at the free kick and sort of wondered what the goalkeeper was doing, because he's not smashed it and it's not gone right in the corner. But I mean, it's a tribute to his level of professionalism, which was something that was sometimes challenged when he was in England. That he's gone to DC United and he's absolutely revolutionised their season. So respect to him for that, because I think a lot of people would have assumed that he would be going and just kind of earning a bit of money, thinking, actually, this is a bit shit, really, that all these players aren't as good as the players that I'm used to playing with. But what he's done is he's turned up and he's clearly too good for that team and too good for that league. And he's not gone about representing that in a haughty way, but actually he's elevating what's around him. And we can only respect that. Yeah,
which is kind of exactly what Robbie Keane did as well. He showed up, and probably a little bit earlier on in his career profile than Wayne Rooney was, but maybe not. I don't know. It's hard to tell. They were both obviously teenage prodigies who you kind of thought would just play out the string of the last few years of their careers. But I don't know. Maybe there is something in these guys that is still separating them from the average run-of-the-mill Premier League striker who's like, yeah, look, I've made all my money. That there was a desire to play football and a joy in playing football that maybe we didn't fully appreciate.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is also just a personal quality of, very basic self-respect. You're going to work, you do your best. And I think there's quite a lot of it is that. In terms of like their footballing ability also, I guess that never leaves you, and they might lose the change of pace that made them particularly good. But all the other things that they had, like Rooney's ability to hit a free kick like that, we'll probably still have that in 10 years' time, never mind right now. And but yeah, as you say, like the desire that they played with a bit of mongrel and a bit of drive that, again, like it's tied up with more than just football. It's tied up with self-respect and doing your best and a work ethic, and you're not going to lose that just because you've lost a bit of pace, I don't suppose.
I want to move on and talk to you about the Saudi Arabia Manchester United story. Marina Hyde today in The Guardian has done a demolition job on the origins of this story, tracing back who the Star credited, I use credited in inverted commas there in case anybody isn't actually watching us, with having talked about the story first on Twitter, and she kind of traces that back along and basically says this is all nothing more than a house of cards. And yet, you're going to have to colour me a little bit sceptical about the fact that this story emerged in precisely the same week that the eyes of the world's press are on Saudi Arabia, finally, over the death of a journalist, but also kind of joining the dots with the famine in Yemen. And I just have enough scepticism about how the world's media works to think that it's not a coincidence the story emerges at the same time.
No, it's not, and I mean there is obviously no evidence for the reality that Saudi Arabia are going to buy out the Glazers, but there's also some circumstantial evidence that suggests that this is something that might happen sometime. In that, United are the biggest, or up there with the biggest football names, franchises, whatever appalling word you want to use to describe a football club in the world, and they're owned by people whose status and wealth is not commensurate with that. The thing is once United became a PLC, all of this stuff became possible, and now that they're owned by the Glazers, at some point the Glazers might decide that a huge sum of money is worth more than a family ATM, which is what United is at the moment, because you get to a certain age and you think, well, can't be asked with the aggravation of whatever they do to run United, which isn't very much, but it's something. And also, when you start to be like 50, 60, £4 billion, whatever it would be, is more use to you than £10 million and £10 million and £10 million. So unless there's this desire to keep United in the Glazer family, and given their propensity for falling out with each other and suing each other, I don't know how likely that is, then obviously you would expect at some point that someone really seriously rich who wants the club not for money but for reasons of PR will think, well, actually, I can afford that. So it wouldn't be surprising whether or not there's any evidence. And I suppose it's something that, as a United supporter, but also just as someone that likes football, is something of which I am fit, because, I mean, the Glazers have taken £1 billion out of United. They've hindered United's greatest manager of all time. The team that won the league 3 years in a row and won European Cup could have done so much more if it wasn't for the Glazers. And now United are reaping the rewards of that, where they're seeing City winning things and being the best team around. And despite all of that, selling out to the Saudi royal family would be the worst thing that the Glazers had perpetrated to United. And it's funny because you look at what the Glazers are and what they've done, and you look at what City's owners are and have done, and as a supporter, I would take the Glazers all day, because at least they're just ripping us off. Whereas the owners of City are doing far more nefarious shit on an international, institutional level. And that kind of thing has no place in sport, and its association with sporting clubs has no place in football. And it would be a very dark day if the Glazers sold out to these people.
When you talk about that nefarious stuff, I wonder, is there an appetite to undo that, or to sort of install some measures to try and stop, as you said, a nefarious shit from happening? Because I think that if the Manchester United deal goes through, if this thing is based in fact and the Saudis do get involved with Manchester United, then you've got the UAE, you've got Qatar, and you've got Saudi Arabia, all well represented in top Champions League clubs. It's one of the last bastions, I guess, of hope, if you can call Malcolm Glazer and his family that, left in the United Kingdom and left in European football. And it would be a dark time for the future of football and how it's controlled.
100%. Like, football is about competing at football, at a sport. A club is an association of like-minded individuals, not an institution for the soft rivalry, for the soft geopolitical rivalries. And so, I mean, it's really hard to see how we go about getting the game back, because what would need to happen would be you'd need laws that currently don't exist, but not only that, that would need to be enforceable, where you'd need, I don't know if you'd need a 50+1 rule, where you need a rule in the league where all clubs are owned 50 shares plus one, 50% of the shares plus one are owned by supporters. Or you say, I don't know what you say, like no nefarious national powers, nations are allowed to own football clubs. I don't know what you would do.
Maybe a fit and proper persons test like that,
right,
that definitely would work, wouldn't it?
Exactly. So yeah, we've had that. We've seen it doesn't work, and we've seen it doesn't work in all sorts of different cases. Not just at the top. We've seen what happened at Leyton Orient. We've seen what happened at Leeds. We've seen what happened at Manchester City with Thaksin Shinawatra. I mean, we've seen all of these things, and all the game's highest authorities, and not only the game's highest authorities, but the government are culpable in all of this. They did nothing to stop it happening. I mean, I guess the Saudi situation now has escalated because current affairs have overtaken footballing affairs. So how, like, let's say that the Saudis made an offer for United, how would they go about justifying the fit and proper person test? But we've seen over and over again that when it comes to football, nothing matters apart from money, because unfortunately the people that run football are business people, and their job is to produce healthy balance sheets and healthy profit and loss accounts. And so for them, football exists to make money. It doesn't make money because it exists. And we see it in different forms. We see it at United, where United being a successful football team is not really the main feature here. It's how much money the Glazers can get out. You see it at Tottenham, where football decisions are less important than decisions that enable Daniel Levy to say, look how much money I made, and go and tell Joe Lewis what a good businessman he is. Like, Spurs are a business. And we're seeing now what's going on with the ground, where they cut corners building the ground. The ground isn't ready on time. Everyone knows it's not going to be ready for some time, but they're drip feeding the dates about when it's going to be ready, because otherwise they have to give back supporters all their money all in one go. And who wants that? Because it's not a football club that's owned by its fans, even though they own it morally. It's a football club that's owned by people that want to make money. And you see Woodward talking about people will be amazed at what we can do financially in the transfer market, and United have this many Twitter engagements and stuff. And these things, in theory, shouldn't be relevant, but what Woodward has to do, he doesn't have to show the Glazers about all the trophies that United have won. He needs to show the Glazers how much money he is giving them to take out of United. And all this stuff is underpinned by business people that are running the authorities that have forgotten that this is about football. This is about like-minded people expressing identity, expressing unity through sport and all these things. And so that's why we're in the mess that we're in.
Yeah, on the other side of like-minded people expressing identity through sport, we have the unfortunate scenes from the England fans this week in Seville, where riot police ended up dispersing. What's the crappy name they have for themselves?
The Football Lads Alliance. I think I'm correct in that one, Daniel. Certainly, certainly the most admirable of the group. Certainly the most notorious, I suppose.
In a classic People's Front of Judea, Judean People's Front dunce. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if everyone should read Jack Pitt-Brooks' article on this topic, where what he talks about is how actually this reflects quite a significant element of where UK politics currently are, where people see themselves as superior and separate, and there's a particular, some people are authentic and some people aren't element to this, where there's like this whole Pope and IRA song being sung by people that don't remember when the Troubles were a thing. And if they're singing that, they're basically saying that the England football team are a Protestant endeavour. And if you extrapolate from there, if they're excluding Catholics, then who else are they excluding? I mean, basically everyone else, given that Catholics have been in England quite a lot longer than other English people. And I mean, this thing's been going on certainly for as long as I can remember. I mean, I remember as a teenager going to watch England play Romania, and there being Sieg Heiling during the national anthem. And as a Jewish teenager, I thought, well, I'm not coming back to this. And my 2 trips to Wembley subsequently to watch England have been in the away end, watching Israel as a Jew and watching Ghana as a husband to a Ghanaian. Like the England national team certainly have nothing to do with me and don't represent me. And this whole notion, these notions of Englishness and what Englishness represents are a huge amount to do with that. I think that what you're also getting are people whose clubs don't go overseas, using this as an opportunity to go and act up and, in inverted commas, forge reputations overseas, because obviously this is the talk of the European Union at the moment, what Ken from Blackpool is doing in Sevilla. But it's an unfortunate reflection of a little Englander mentality that, as Jack said in this piece, you don't need to watch football to get a handle on this. You just need to put the news on, and it reflects a pretty dark time for our world. I mean, they're trying to stop people. They're trying to stop Muslims who wear head coverings getting jobs in Quebec at the moment. We've seen what's going on in America. There's some terrible stuff that's going on in Israel with the way that people relate to East Africans and the way that people relate to Palestinians. And I mean, all you need to do, it's not just an English problem. It's a world problem, and this kind of thing tends to happen when people don't have as much money as they like, and we've seen it happen since the crash. It's intensified because when people don't have all the things that they want and all the things that they think they're due, and a lot of these things are things that they are due. People are due a meal, some clothes, a job, some happiness, some love. Then people start to look at things to blame, and the things that get blamed often are the people who are most vulnerable and the people who have arrived most recently, and that's what we're seeing. Except what we're seeing now with the English football team has been the case for as long as I can remember, and it's not something actually that is just to do with recessions and crashes, but to do with how English people have perceived themselves for hundreds of years, since even long before George Canning said every nation for us itself and God for us all. England has had the UK has had this policy of splendid isolation, and it permeates. People, like empire is about dominating other people, and if you look through English society today, you still see celebrations of empire. You see a royal family whose wealth is built significantly on the slave trade. You see all the deference and forelock tugging. You see phrases like blue blood. What does blue blood mean? Blue blood means being able to see someone's veins through the whiteness, the pale whiteness of their skin. We see this stuff everywhere. We see vestiges of slavery everywhere. We see vestiges of racism everywhere. When we look at the media, we see who has the jobs in the media, who has the jobs in the government, who has the jobs in the financial services. We see reflections of racism not only everywhere in our society, but celebrated through the institutions of our society. So when we look at what goes on when people go abroad supporting the English football team, and football is it's a conflict. It's an inherently intense kind of conflict, and that's one of the reasons we love it. In its purest form, it's the ability to enjoy emotions that are that are generally not so good in polite society in a safe environment. But what we see often, and what we're seeing here, is the crossing over of that kind of conflict, of that aggression, into things that actually matter, like migration and national identity and discrimination. And that's an enormous problem, not just with football, but with our society. And it would be good if everyone could just stop being dickheads and be nice to each other, please.
Yeah, 100%. One last point, and I know you need to go. That's why I'm actually delighted that it's Raheem Sterling doing the goal scoring, and that's why this England team, these players, are actually far easier, I would suggest, for most people to get behind who think the way and who understand the points that you just made. It is a team who are made up from a disparate ethnic profile. It is a team who is truly representative of a bunch of people who have come from all around the world to make their homes in England generations ago, centuries ago, whatever it is. It's not a team of blue bloods. And so therefore that must really stick in the craw of those dickheads.
And I don't even know if it does. Sometimes you wonder if people have even made the connection, but I agree 100%. This England team is a beautiful thing, and I say that as someone who, England aren't my team. But I look at that England team and they make me feel something more than all the other England teams, because, and actually, it's not just a race thing, although it is 100% a race thing. And this is something I guess that's particularly important to me. I'm married to a Ghanaian, we've got a biracial daughter, so I think about these things a lot, and I see the way that these things encroach into not just into the lives of the people that are closest to me a lot. And it's so much more than I could possibly have imagined when I was going about my business before this was in my family. And but it's also I think what we see with this New England team is different expressions of masculinity. Because England teams past, the kind of English heroes were Terry Butcher, Brian Robson, who weren't. It's not just the fact that they were white. It's the fact that they had this particular expression of what it meant to be a man. And I think that we're seeing something really different in this current English team. And what we saw, what was seen in Sevilla this week was the kind of old expressions of masculinity. Being a man is being hard and being aggressive and being violent. But in this English team, we don't really see players like that. And I mean, it's nice, obviously, we still enjoy it. It's still an amazing element of football. Like, clearly the highlight of England's game against Sevilla was Eric Dyer's tackle on Sergio Ramos. And we still love all of that stuff. And that stuff still has a place in football, but football's not all about that, and masculinity isn't all about that. There's no set way to be a man, because there's no set way to be a human being. You just have to be likeable and nice to people. And that's what we see a lot of in this English team, that is exemplified in the main by Gareth Southgate. And that's something that the people that follow the England team would do well to pay attention to and learn from and get behind.
Daniel, great stuff. Thanks very much for joining us this morning.
See you again.